Good day, everyone. We're here at the Postgraduate Institute of Management with Dr. Lloyd Fernando. He is the Master of the Public Administration Program, reaching out to all districts in the country at the PIM. He has a background as Director General National Planning, State Secretary, Ministry of Policy Planning, Alternate Executive Director, Asian Development Bank, Manila. He is also the Chairman of MAGA Institute and Founder Director of IPS, Institute of Policy Studies. Welcome to our program today.
Thank you. Good morning.
There seems to be a fair amount of confusion in the country about the state of the economy here in Sri Lanka. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's what I can do is to give you an analytical framework rather than start giving a full report. What is important to note is that at the moment we are like standing on two cliffs, perched on two cliffs with time bombs hanging there. What are the two cliffs? One is the fiscal cliff and the other is the balance of payments cliff. As a result of these two, in order to manage this, we keep on borrowing and we add on to the problems. But at some stage we have to get out of the debt trap and deal with these problems, otherwise there will be explosion. If we had to learn lessons from Greece, they went from a situation which was bad to worse and utter confusion, and as you know, they also start with this debt trap. So similarly in Sri Lanka, you see, if you look at the fiscal cliff, the fiscal trap, where we cannot manage the budget. There is a huge budget deficit, and worse still, you see the recurrent expenditure keeps on mounting, which is, and a good proportion of that goes for salary payments, as well as servicing the debt. That is both, you see, particularly the interest account. And then, so what we do is, at the moment, since we are running short of revenue, we keep on borrowing. On the other hand, we try to impose taxes. Now, on taxes, there is a problem because you have to see that those taxes do not put further burdens on the people. That is why last year in November, if I remember the date right, 5th of November, the Prime Minister made a statement, very important statement, in which he said that he would like to reduce the indirect taxes from 80% of the total revenue to about 60% over a period of time, a short period, the next 5 years. And then he said, of course, this would mean raising the direct taxes, that's the tax on corporates, corporations, corporate bodies, businesses, and also individuals, you see, rich people. But what happened with the budget was quite different. You see, in the budget we have imposed more indirect taxes, and indirect taxes have gone up to some, according to the budget, of course, the situation keeps on changing, and if I remember right at the beginning it was about 87% indirect taxes, so it was going contrary to what the Prime Minister expected. Well, one could understand, I mean, to shift from indirect to direct taxes takes some time, so there should be a plan so that you gradually increase this. So this is where I think the lack of coordination comes up, and then I will talk about it later. The other problem is the balance of payments. You see, thank God we get these remittances from these women who are working abroad. You see, most of them women, and then the others, they remit their incomes, and as a result we keep afloat. But that's also not enough, so we keep on borrowing foreign exchange. And recently we asked the IMF to bail us out, and we were promised 1.5 billion to be given in several tranches. But that's not enough, because I think this year alone we need to repay about 8 billion. So we have to find that money, and So it will have to be through further borrowings of foreign direct investment. Now the problem is that these things cannot be treated piecemeal. You see, there should be greater cohesion of policy. There must be room for coordination, collaboration, and then there must be commitment, and above all, there must be good communication. So if you wish to ask how this is related, those 5 C's are related to the problem that we intend solving, I can start by talking about cohesion. Now without going into details, see, look at the problem of, engaging direct foreign investment in the country. The government is very keen on that and sees a solution in bringing FDI. And so we have 2 major projects in mind, the megapolis, which you have heard about, then the Colombo port city, 2 very big projects, you see, unprecedented levels. Then we also want to revive the Hambantota harbour, and then the Matala airport, all big, what I call infrastructure projects. Now, there are several problems. One is they are good projects, but they will take a long time to yield the necessary results, particularly in terms of foreign exchange earnings. Now, there will be a lot of investment coming in, but they will have to be repaid, particularly the loans at some stage. If it is after 10 years, then it's okay, but I don't know when we have to repay those loans. Even foreign investment, direct foreign investment, you see, there is a question of repatriation of profits that have taken place. So these projects must also earn foreign exchange. So I hope the government has looked into this question. You can't earn foreign exchange immediately. It will take some time, but there must be a plan to see that there will be sufficient foreign exchange earnings arising out of this project, either directly or indirectly, so that we would be in a position to repay those. That is one side. On the other, far more serious is the question of skills that are required to manage these projects. Already we are told that we had to depend on Chinese labor, you see, or Indian labor to handle some of the projects, particularly the harbour, the Hambantota harbour. We were told that a lot of Chinese labor had to be brought in. Well, we might get into the same situation here with regard to the megapolis and the Colombo port. We don't seem to have the necessary skills. We have people with feet and arms and all that kind of thing and the head, but they need skills. Do we have carpenters? Do we have masons? Do we have bricklayers? Do we have welders? You see? If we plunge into this, you see, without having those people, or at least if we can assure that in about 2-3 years' time we will have the necessary labor, then it's all right. So for that there must be a program to train people quickly. Otherwise we get into difficulties. Quite apart from that, the danger is that if you have to go ahead, we might have to import labor, and that will create a lot of social and political problems, a lot of tension.
If I may ask, what are some of the benefits that the government is hoping for by instituting the megapolis plan?
A megapolis, you see, that's basically infrastructure program, and that will support a number of other programs. You see, it will provide the base for the development of various industries in particular, and service sector, from which, you see, you'll be able to earn money to keep the economy going. But these things do not come about in the short run. They take a longer time. I remember I was in Korea when they discussed this question of the Busan highway from Seoul to Busan. There was a lot of discussion about it and people opposed it because it was going to be a long-term project. But finally, you see, but they went ahead and the government had the guts to do it and also had the wherewithal, you see, the political wherewithal to handle the situation like that. As a result, the Busan highway was opened up and the country benefited a great deal. But whether we can be consistent or not is another matter, you see. So that is why, you see, it is extremely important. The further problem about these projects is that these infrastructure projects is that, of course, they will show very good growth rates of the economy. So everybody will be happy. The economy is growing at 7%, 8%, and that's what happened in the last few years before this regime was installed. The problem is that those economic growth benefits do not come to the people immediately. First thing, it doesn't create the employment opportunities. The other is that the danger is that people who are paid, you see, for participating in these programs, they will come to the market. There will be millions of or billions of rupees coming to the market, and that will bid up the prices of goods unless there is an expansion of production, particularly agriculture products, which forms the base of the food basket. So that is why I said there must be a sort of a cohesive approach, cohesion, you see, and then it must lead to some kind of coordination of effort. You cannot just deal with infrastructure projects without also dealing with the production sector. I also mentioned to you that there must be collaboration. Of course, in an economy such as ours, this is not Cuba or North Korea. Those are the only two countries where the government is doing everything. So the private sector has to play the big role, and 80% of the production comes from the private sector. So there must be, opportunity for productive collaboration between the government and the private sector, which we call public-private partnership. Now that can be weaved in two ways. Very often when people talk about PPP collaboration, they think of those projects which the private sector is offered. In fact, now the megapolis as well as the Colombo port city will create a lot of opportunities for PPP. That is at what we call the micro level, you see. But then there is a need for macro policies. The policy framework must be such that it promotes private sector involvement. Take one is the fiscal situation. You have to manage the fiscal situation. That's the budget. On the other hand, on the balance of payments. Now, one of the major problems is with regard to the exchange rate. Are we going to suppress the exchange rate because of the fear that it will create problems on the cost of living? Or are we going to allow the exchange rate to find its mark according to supply and demand for foreign exchange? Now, if you suppress it, then you are going to take away the necessary incentives for people who will engage in exports. On the other hand, you will promote imports because imports are cheaper. So this is a danger that what we did in the past, you see, before 2015, was that we suppressed the exchange rate by dumping borrowed money onto the market and keeping the exchange rate stable. So on the one hand, one could say, yes, we did very well, we had a stable exchange rate. But on the other hand, it just took away the incentive for export development and also promoted imports. Imports are cheaper. Now, this is a big problem that the government will have to face. See? So that's why I said coordination is extremely important, collaboration is important, And the other most important thing is commitment on the government to go through a consistent program of work. You see, one of the biggest problems that governments in Sri Lanka face is lack of commitment. And I had to struggle with this in my previous incarnation when I was handling the public investment program as Director General of National Planning. We saw to it that there was discipline in the allocation of resources. We saw to it that there was commitment on the part. Fortunately, I was helped by 2 or 3 big, stalwarts in the government. One was in the initial period, it was Mr. Ronnie Dimel, who had a strong presence in the cabinet. And then we had the cabinet secretary, Mr. JVP Samarasinghe, who helped me to enforce that kind of discipline. I had to deal with heavyweights like Mr. Lalita Tulat Pundali, Kamani Disanayaka, Mr. Premadas, to tell them, well, if you want any new projects to come in, you have to go through the discipline of the public investment program. But I don't see that happening. Today you get all sorts of intrusions into the budget, as a result of which the budget gets revised all the time. You see? So commitment is very important. Commitment at the very top. See to it that there is discipline. Now for all these things to happen, there must be good communication. Communication within the government, that is among the various ministries, but there seems to be a lack of communication. Sometimes you see 2, 3 ministries doing the same thing, and they are working at cross purposes. Look at the cabinet structure. How many? 48 ministries? I don't know, 48 or 49 ministries. You see, it's a huge cabinet structure. And there is a Ministry of Higher Education also dealing with highways. What is the connection? You see? So the coordination doesn't seem to be there, and also lack of communication. As a result, one of the major problems with regard to this the VAT is that there has been a lack of communication with the people. So there must be internal communication, and there must be communication with the rest of the society. You have to explain to the people why we have to have, increased VAT, And communication is a basis for collaboration, for coordination, and for a cohesive approach. That in short, if you have any further questions, I will be glad to. I hope I have given you a basic framework within the short period at my disposal.
Going forward, what can the Sri Lankan government do to make sure that we are headed in the right direction and with a clear game plan to improve the economy?
Well, the idea is very simple, but implementation is difficult, probably due to the political ramifications. So what you need is a mechanism through which all those things like cohesion, coordination, collaboration, commitment is achieved. There is internal communication among the various ministries. So what we need is something which I have been advocating for the last 2 years, is to have a council, a National Economic Council of professionals, who give advice to the government. It's an advisory body. There they can look at all these issues relating to agriculture, industry, transport, and all those systems, and advise the government through a cabinet subcommittee on economic development. A cabinet subcommittee can be chaired by the Prime Minister and can include some of the most important ministries or ministers. So that is like Minister of Agriculture, Ministry of Industries, Ministry of Transport. They can be all represented in the cabinet subcommittee. Now instead of that, someone might say, well, we have something like that. There is a development advisory committee or something like that. Mr. Mangalayappa, as I know, a very competent person. You see, came from the private sector. He was Secretary General of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, and before that, Managing Director of Colombo Dockyard. Very competent person he had been. But then even though it is called a Development Advisory Committee, it looks like they are looking at basically some of the foreign investment that is coming to the country. He's tried to coordinate the Export Development Board activity with the BOI. Now, unfortunately, his hands will be also tied to some of the bureaucratic issues dealing with these things. You see, if you want to promote foreign investment and if you want to promote exports, then you have to go down the line, you see, to the production sectors. And that can be done through only a much wider organization dealing with all the ramifications. You can't deal with exports only by, you see, helping some exporters who come to you for support. You have to promote those exports. You have to also think in which direction exports must go in the future. See? Now, as you know, if you look at the international market, the market for our products have gone down. That is the traditional, tea, rubber and coconut is out. Then garments. We have to get out of that situation, or maybe add more value to the garment sector. And then we have to think of new exports. So those are not things that can be done by the Development Advisory Committee as it is. It will have to come from a national planning organization or National Economic Council, you see, which looks into all those issues. And because there are wider policy issues involved. And where exports are concerned, we have to think of the future export structure. And if you look at the international market, now the market is growing mostly for collaborative production. That's where the partnership in production. You see, countries specialize in the production of components, see, rather than the finished product. So several countries get together and do this. Then we have to identify those areas. And that's the thing that can be done only through the mechanism of a National Economic Council.
All right. Okay. When it comes to continuity of policies that perhaps are instituted by one government, and then when there's a change in government, there is a new set of policies. Perhaps can we take some, from the example of India perhaps, to have a system whereby there is some sort of continuity that you see in terms of policy, so that there isn't sort of a upheaval every time that there is a change in government?
Yes, so the political system must promote that. That's why we, from the PIM itself, we recommended to the committee, the Vijayanaka committee which was looking into the constitution, to see that there is a cabinet structure which will continue. It won't change with governments. Individuals will change, but the structure will remain. You see, we were thinking of a smaller cabinet of about 28 to 30 and structured on what is called the sectoral principle. For instance, agriculture. Now, under agriculture, there will be opportunity for deputy ministers. There will be a minister and deputy ministers on irrigation, on land, you see, crops, and maybe plantations, you see, like that. But there is coordination, and that will remain. So when a new government comes in, you don't throw that system out, so there will be continuity. You see, not of the individuals, but the system will continue. And here what happens is, with the change of government, you know, the ministries get splintered, and you see, what has happened in the past is not taken into account, see. And so as a result, there is lack of coordination.
So you could possibly say that the state of the economy usually reflects sort of the lack of coordination that's happening sort of in the government.
Yeah, it appears to be so. See, there, actually when you look at the gap between the Prime Minister's statement itself and the budget proposals. It seems to be, from the same party. There seems to be a problem of communication in the first instance and coordination. So,
would you say that perhaps really this government could perhaps actually look into the mechanism of government and governing and institute new policies there, which would be useful for the future?
yes, so that's what I said, you need a coordinating body. First of all, of course, you can't expect the government to reduce the size of the cabinet as it is now, because it's a political issue. But they'll have to devise a system whereby there is proper coordination, there is communication, you see, among the ministries.
All right, so that is the need of the hour.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your very valuable thoughts with us today.
Okay, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Okay.